The square root. Find the square root of the following. Number 1, square root of 25. Positive, negative 5. Number 2, square root of 121. Positive, negative 11. Square root of 81. Positive, negative 9. Square root of 4, a very easy number. Positive, negative 2. Square root of 169. Positive, negative 13. Square root of 225. Can you guess? Yes, that's correct. And that is positive, negative 15. Square root of 100, a very easy number. And that is positive, negative 10. Square root of 64. Positive, negative 8. How about square root of 81 over square root of 100? And that is positive, negative 9 over 10. Last one, we have here square root of 16 over square root of 36. Can you guess? This is also a very easy number. And that is positive, negative 4 over 6 or positive, negative 2 over 3. Let's have a little discussion. Let's start by taking a look at an example evaluating the square root of 81. Okay, what number squared equals 81? Okay, so we all know that the factor of 81 is 9. So 9 squared, or we can simply write it as 9 times 9. What else? Of course, negative 9 squared. We can simply write it as negative 9 multiplied by negative 9. So therefore, square root of 81 is equal to positive negative 9. Another example, a very easy number, 121. Square root of 121. So we all know that the factor of 121 is 11. So the number squared equals to 121 is 11 squared. Or we can simply write it as 11 times 11. What else? Negative 11 squared. So that is negative 11 multiplied by negative 11. So therefore, 121 square root of 121 is equal to positive negative. Quadratic equations. In getting the roots of quadratic equation, we have 4 different methods. The first one is the extracting the square root. Second is the factoring. Third is the completing the square. And the fourth is the quadratic formula. Let's go on now to extracting the square root. Now, when will you tell that we need to use this method in finding the roots of quadratic equation? So this is the standard form of quadratic equation, which is ax squared plus bx plus c is equal to 0. Now, when our linear term becomes 0, kapag ito na ay naging 0, what will happen to our equation? Our equation will become ax squared plus c is equal to 0. So, how many terms do we have? Ilang terms na lang meron tayo? Okay? So, we have 2 terms. Anong mga terms iyon? We have here quadratic terms and constant terms. So, ibig sabihin, kapag ang natira sa equation natin ay 2 terms, which are the quadratic terms and the constant term, we will use now the extracting the square root. Now, quadratic equations that can be written in the form x squared is equal to k, where x squared is our quadratic term and k is the constant term, can be solved by applying the following properties. Number 1, if k is greater than 0, now let me ask you first, what numbers are greater than 0? Yes, that's correct. All positive numbers from 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and so on. Lahat ng mga positive numbers. Then, x squared is equal to k has 2 real solutions or roots, and that is x is equal to positive and negative square root of k. So, meaning to say, may dalawa kang real solution na makukuha. How about if your k becomes 0? Then x squared is equal to k has one real solution or root, and that is x is equal to 0. Now what happens if your k less than 0? What are the numbers less than 0? Of course, all negative numbers. Then x squared is equal to k has no real solutions or root. Wala nang solution, walang roots. When your k becomes negative numbers. So from negative 1, negative 2, and so on. The method of solving the quadratic equation x squared is equal to k is called extracting the square root. Find the solutions of the equation x squared minus 16 is equal to 0 by extracting the square root. First, we need to write the equation in the form of x squared is equal to k. So we have here x squared minus 16 is equal to 0. Now kung mapapansin nyo, ang sign ng 16 is negative. So what method are we going to use? So since negative yung sign ng 16, we will use the addition property of equality. So we will use the additive inverse. From negative 16, it will become x squared is equal to positive 16. So we have here x squared is equal to 16. So we can now apply the extracting the square root by putting square root both sides. Then cancel the squared and write x is equal to square root of 16. Then we all know that the square root of 16 is positive and negative 4. Now if you will notice that the value of k is positive 16, that's why we have two solutions or roots. Our x is equal to positive 4 and x is equal to negative 4. To check, substitute these values in the original equation. Let's use the first root, which is the positive 4. In the original equation, x squared minus 16 is equal to 0. So all you need to do is to substitute the value. Alisin si x, palitan si 4. What is the value of 4 squared? 4 times 4 is 16. So 16 minus 16 is 0. Okay. Next, x is equal to negative 4. So substitute the value. Alisin si x, palitan ng negative 4. Negative 4 squared is what? Negative 4 times negative 4 is 16. So 16 minus 16 is 0. Okay. The equation x squared minus 16 is equal to 0 has two solutions. X is equal to 4 or x is equal to negative 4. Another example here, solve the equation t squared is equal to 0. Since t squared equals 0, then the equation has only one solution. Ito na yung sinasabi ko sa inyo kanina. When our k becomes 0, the x squared is equal to k has one real solution, which is 0. So let us see. That is t is equal to 0. And to check it, substitute the value of t into t. T squared, substitute it, then 0 is equal to 0. Answer. The equation t squared is equal to 0 has one solution. T is equal to 0. Another example, find the roots of the equation s squared plus 9 is equal to 0. Write the equation in the form x squared is equal to k. Now, if you notice our equation s squared plus 9 is equal to 0 is not in the form x squared is equal to k. Hindi pa siya nakaporma. So, what are we going to use? Since positive yung nakalagay dun sa harapan ni 9, positive yung kanyang sign. So since this is positive, we will use the subtraction property of equality. So from positive 9, we will use the additive inverse. It will become S squared is equal to negative 9. So this time, naka-form na siya into X squared is equal to K. So we can now perform the extracting the square root. But however, if you notice that the value of K is negative number, which is negative 9. So sabi ko nga kanina, when K is less than 0 or negative numbers, okay, the X squared is equal to K has no real solution or root. Wala tayong solution. So you can just put, since negative 9 is less than 0, then the equation S squared is equal to negative 9 has no real solution or root. So the answer, the equation S squared plus 9 is equal to 0 has no real solutions or roots. Okay, so solve the following quadratic equation by extracting the square root. Number 1, we have here x squared is equal to 36. I know that you can now solve this since we are done discussing the three properties. This equation is written in the form of x squared is equal to k. So meaning to say, our k is 36, positive number. We are now expecting two real solutions or root. And we can now apply the extracting the square root. Pwede na nating i-apply ang extracting the square root kasi nakaporma na siya. Okay? The first step is put square root both sides. Okay, then cancel the squared. It will become x is equal to square root of 36. And we all know that the square root of 36 is positive and negative 6. So we have two solutions, positive 6 and negative 6. Another example, we have here r squared minus 100 is equal to 0. So if I may ask you, is our equation written in the form x squared is equal to k? Okay, no. What method are we going to use since minus yung katabi ni 100? Okay, so the method that we're going to use is the addition property of equality. We will use the additive inverse from negative 11 to negative 100 to positive 100. Okay, now this time our equation is in the form of x squared is equal to k. Now our k is positive since this is 100. The value is 100. So we are expecting two solutions or root. Now we can apply the extracting the square root. The first step is put square root both side. Bakit nga tayo naglalagay ng square root both side? To cancel out the squared. So the next step is write r is equal to square root of 100, and we all know that the square root of 100 is what? Positive and negative 10. So we have two solutions. R is equal to positive 10 and r is equal to negative 10. Another example is 2x squared is equal to 50. This is a confusing example because some of you guys will tell that this is in the form of x squared is equal to k, but some will say no. Okay, but mostly, bakit? Kasi kapareha. But if you notice, there is a number greater than 1 doon sa katabi ni variable x squared doon sa ating quadratic term. So kapag ganun, ibig sabihin hindi pa siya naka-forma into x squared equals k. Ngayon, ano ang gagawin natin? What method? We will use the division property of equality. Kung ano ang nakikita yung value ni A, dito sa ating example, ang value ni A is 2. We will put that in our denominator both side. So, lagyan natin ng denominator na 2. Bakit 2? Kasi yun yung value ni A. Okay? Para bakit? To cancel it out. Para wala nang kasama si x squared. Okay? So, we have here x squared is equal to 25 because 50 over 2 is 25. This time, si x squared is equal to 25 is in the form of x squared is equal to k, meaning to say, we can now perform the extracting the square root. So put square root both sides to cancel the squared. Okay? Then we have here x is equal to square root of 25, and the square root of 25 is positive and negative 5. So we have two real solutions. We have x is equal to positive 5 and x is equal to negative 5. Okay, next example, we have here 4x squared minus 225 is equal to 0. Now, I believe you can now tell that this equation is not in the form of x squared is equal to k. Now, what are we going to use? Parehas lang din doon sa parang nauna. Nakita nyo yan, 225 is in negative. So, what method are we going to use? Addition property of equality. So we will use the additive inverse from negative 225. It will become positive 225. Okay? Then, another. Meron pa tayong 4 sa katabi ni x squared. So what method are we going to use again? Division property of equality. So, ano nga yung ilalagay natin sa kanyang denominator? Both side. Kung ano ang value ni A. Ano ang value ni A? 4. So, 4 din yung ilalagay natin sa denominator. Ma'am, paano kung ang value natin na katabi ni x squared ay 5? So, meaning to say, ang ilalagay nyo sa denominator nyo both side is 5. Anong reason? To cancel it out. Okay? So, ang natira na lang natin ay x squared, okay, is equal to 225 over 4. Now, we can say that this is in the form of x squared is equal to k. So, we can now perform the extracting the square root. So, put square root both side, okay, then to cancel the squared. So, you will have x is equal to positive and negative 15 over 2. Okay, pwede pa ba natin paliitin? Hindi na. This is the final answer.